Let's go to the Firehose, Mike. Let's do the rapid fire news.
Let's do it.
We've got all the energy and water usage numbers for AI, and they look pretty insignificant, to be honest. Gemini text prompt uses about as much energy as a Google search did. So what's the fuss about?
I think I think one of our commenters also pointed out on one of our shorts that this has become ideological.
Yeah.
And when it becomes ideological, we talked about AI psychosis, but it's running in two separate directions. I think there's the absolute hype psychosis that you're seeing with tech CEOs and the tech world in general that Mark Andreessen references a lot. If you don't have AI psychosis, something's wrong with you right now. I think there's a psychosis on the other side that is fundamentally opposed to all things AI, no matter what, and will find any reason to attack it. And there are often environmental concerns attached to that view. There is NIMBYism on that side. Let's just be honest. So there are two sides with, I think, views that are detached from the fundamentals. You just used the word right now. And one of the things we kept hearing is like, they're consuming too much water, right? They're consuming too much energy.
Yep.
So let me challenge the people on that side. It's not that I disagree with you, but this is what we do here, right? We challenge people's assumptions. The article points out that, yeah, it doesn't actually use that much energy. And over the last year, the energy consumption of a query has dropped like 33-fold. And this is one of the dangers. It could be that you formed your psychosis a year ago, or even 2 years ago, when AI was super inefficient, when the hallucinations were worse. I remember for our application, it would have been impossible to code it a year ago, maybe even 8 months ago at this point, but it's moving that rapidly. The other point I would bring up is we talk about energy as if it's zero sum.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say zero sum, there's a fixed pie of energy. So my point would be, if that's the problem, and it's never clear what people are really against this for, if that's the problem, build more energy. Make it easier to build energy. China's scaling their stuff up like crazy because they've decided the solution to that is build out.
Yep.
Build nuclear, build coal. Don't care what you build. Just keep building and building and building. And meanwhile, our debate is stuck around, the regulations around it, what to build, where to build. It's probably going to differ by the state. That's the good part of the United States, the laboratory, where you can experiment with different energy, different subsidies, attract energy companies, and it's not federally led. So you don't get that state-led model in China where you can just scale up really fast. You get more experimentation. There are trade-offs to both. So that would be my challenge to people who seem to be obsessively focused on this water issue and energy issue is we could build more, but if that's not what you're worried about or what the concern is, please tell us what it is.
Yeah. Really, my only input on this topic is, one, it's not destructive to water. It doesn't destroy the water. The water is it diverts the water. It drains the water from one place and puts it in another place, but it is not any more destructive to water than a dam would be.
Well, in processed water, like I worked at a company that dealt with processed water. There's good technology around that to clean it, recycle it, et cetera, and filter it. There's zero liquid discharge technologies. So I just wonder if it's just like this innate, I call it psychosis on both sides. I think some people, it's more the uncertainty around the technology that's driving this and people don't understand it. We talk about it every week, but it's even moving too fast for us probably, right? Sure. So again, show your priors, review your priors, and you're going to this is the perfect issue. AI is moving so fast that you need to update your priors every week. And maybe even every day. But don't do it like this. Don't swing wildly in one direction and then the other direction. Because you'll see X is famous for this. There'll be a doomsday post. Oh my God, we're all going to die because AI has this new capability. You saw that around Mythos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or oh my God, it's nobody's ever going to have to work again. It's either one or the other. Then there are these. They're typically European accounts will hop on and basically say AI is too unsafe. We have to regulate it now before it's too late, right? So you're getting these wild opinions on both sides while we're trying to all sort our way through it. And perfect topic for show your priors, update your priors. Don't don't fall for the psychosis. Let's just say it that way.
All right. Google's AI-powered search, their overhaul, is killing traditional SEO. That's search engine optimization. That's where we put this week's subjects are, and then Google returns your results when you search for our show and that topic. That's SEO. DuckDuckGo initials are up 30% as users push back against being force-fed AI results. Take those results, says Google. Bruh. What do you think, Mike?
So what did I do? I sent you a screenshot. So I ran a test.
Yeah.
I went to DuckDuckGo. I actually like DuckDuckGo because it has this private mode that's better than the others.
You would. Who knows what you're searching for?
Yeah, God knows, right? So I'm searching for things like this story. So I searched for this story on DuckDuckGo, and what came back was a search assist. Right? It's in the screenshot I sent you. There's a search assist, and the search assist was AI. Okay, and then on the screenshot, besides the search assist, which you can turn off, to be fair,
Yep.
you can also turn it off on Google. There's a, or at least you could, maybe that has changed. There's a doc.ai up there. So people have run from Google with the assumption that DuckDuckGo is a refuge from AI. And the first thing you get when you search about the story is an AI generated overview. I find that kind of funny. And that goes back to my point. I don't think you can survive right now as a search engine without AI. I just think it's here. Maybe, but you know what that strategy is called? They call that last man standing. So here's the question. Could you be the last man standing where you reject AI and only run pure old school search? Could you?
Maybe.
Well, it depends on how strong that poll is out there with the psychosis that's anti-AI. There might actually be a play there. I don't know, but is it long-term sustainable? I don't know.
I think the piece that we're not seeing yet is how effective the marketing with baked in marketing into AI is going to be. I think that that's what these companies have seen already, is that it's going to be more akin to content-based advertising. So, content-based advertising gets big bucks because it's effective. Because when you have product placement inside of content from trusted influencers, it sells products. This is going to be kind of similar, where AI is going to suggest, when you search for, oh man, I have a headache, and it's going to say, oh, well, you should just take 2 Advil. It takes care of your headaches, or whatever company it decides to sell you that day. It could be a lot more effective than just the sponsored posts that we see today. I think that's going to be the differentiator for these companies, is the ad revenue that they're able to generate off of AI versus search traditionally. So I don't know. We haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure they've tested.
Hey man, if you pay the dang gelt, in this case, if you take a Google Enterprise contract, you might be placed high up there, right?
Yeah,
it's the recommended solutions to your problems.
Could be. This one kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, in a kind of a sick AI loop. Companies like US Bank and Target are now using AI-generated synthetic customers to run market research at a speed and scale that human surveys could never. This sounds highly sycophantic to me. What I wrote in my script. So that's true.
I first heard about this last year at Imperial College in London. Steve Blank, the big lean startup guru, was talking about the fate of lean startup, and he made this statement. It's the first time I'd heard the phrase that in his approach to innovation, the first thing you do is not build something. The first thing you do is you go talk to 50, 100 customers. Okay? And the idea behind that is to detect whether the problem you believe is real is actually real, and you don't just hallucinate it and start building tech. And when you build the tech, you go out and find out nobody nobody actually wants this. This is a very expensive way to fail. He mentioned, well, I still believe you need to do that, but you can now these days hook it up to like XAI, the Grok, right? You can hook it up to social media and you can create something called a synthetic customer or a synthetic customer persona, synthetic customer profile. And what this does is takes actual data from the world, quantitative data or from APIs, MCPs, right? You mentioned that earlier. And then you can start to simulate how customers might react to this based on what they're actually saying in those environments, right? So it would be a way of getting a first sort of thumbs up whether your first hypotheses about the customer are right or not. It's another way to say, given our existing data, are there customer persona profiles that we haven't recognized yet? You can maybe spin those up. So it's kind of like, the way I read it was a good article, I think, by Bain. I'm not the biggest consulting fan, you know that, but it was pretty good to get a good understanding of what synthetic customers are and what they're being used for. They're it looks like they're starting to replace the traditional marketing methods like clustering and different ways of marketing to get that early feedback on what the customer segmentation could look like, the pricing, etc. And it's kind of like wargaming in that sense that you can spin up these synthetic customers and then test your theories on them, but it's still speculative, right?
Yeah.
It's still based on, if you want to do something fundamentally new, it's not often the case that you can take the existing data on the market, like disruptive, right? Take the existing data on the market and then derive from that the disruptive idea. It's possible. I'm not saying it's not.
Well, Ferrari should start using this stuff.
Yeah, that would be one company that could benefit from it. But what's your take as a sales, professional?
Slop in, slop out. It depends on what
the
you
data.
put in. If I tell Ted in innovation to give me his 10 best ideas, or I tell AI to give me the 10 best ideas, it's going to all depend on what these synthetic customers are, what their prejudices are. Like, they're still going to have biases. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to outperform Ted. I assume they will in the long run. I don't know when we get there, though. Probably not today.
It's better than a synthetic customer is better than not talking to any customers at all.
True.
Which is a very typical practice in corporate where people fixate on technology, launch new technology to no customers.
Yeah. I do think it gives us views from scale that we wouldn't have before. I think in that regard.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a thumbs up. How big could this market be? At least the early indicators are like this. Right?
Well, let's talk about an expensive failure. Jeff Bezos' rocket company had a bad week. It's not funny, but the new Glenn rocket exploded during testing in Florida. It's a setback for Blue Origin as it tries to compete in the space race increasingly dominated by Mr. Musk and SpaceX.
Hey, did you see Musk tweet about this?
I didn't.
Basically, it was sympathetic. And I'm looking at your face to see how you respond to this. Here's the tweet that I saw. Rockets are hard. Most unfortunate. Hope you recover quickly. So here's the question. Is that genuine? And why might it be genuine? So we talked about billionaires competing against each other. Do you think he really cares that Bezos' rocket bit the dust or not? And I'll give you my take. What do you think? Why would he care if he does actually care?
The first sentence you read was when I... Can you say that again? Can you tell me the exact statement?
Rockets are hard. Most unfortunate. Hope you recover quickly.
Yeah, I mean, coming from him, that sounds, I don't know, a little bit insincere, but he's also had a lot of things explode, and he's had criticism. So he's been down that path. I'm sure he understands. From a personal standpoint, I don't know.
So what might else be out there? My thought was, I think he's afraid because when something like this happens and government sees it, they go into safety mode.
Yeah.
And then he might be afraid, whether it happens to Bezos or to him, I'm looking for the self-interest here, right? That if government steps in and puts a pause on things, that actually slows down innovation. And that's a bad thing for both parties. It's a bad thing for Elon. It's a bad thing for Blue Origin, right?
Hmm.
And I think, what's interesting about this in innovation, we often say fail fast, right? With rockets, it seems unacceptable, right? People don't seem to accept the fact that when you're experimenting with rockets,
Yeah.
that you're going to make mistakes. Now, as long as there aren't people on board. Now, let's put a spectrum on this. So, fail fast works really well in the software world where there aren't so many victims. There are barely any victims. You can do A/B testing as long as you're honest and ethical. A lot of people aren't. As long as you're honest and ethical, that's a good way to test early versions. Well, the rocket, it's hardware. It's a bomb, basically, that can go off at any point if there's even a minor mistake. So I find the psychology around that interesting. And those are the types of things that politicians look at because they're big and explosive and big news stories. And you got to show that you're on top of it and you're going to regulate it and make it safe. But the consequence would be if you slow down the race to space, the race to Mars, and he has an incentive to not slow that thing down. So fail fast on cheap things that don't hurt anybody, but when it gets where it could be dangerous, we often have a no fail at all policy. So I would even admit in nuclear, it's a fail never. Don't fail fast in nuclear, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even imagine saying that in nuclear. So there are certain things that are safety critical that need innovation. But one of the things about nuclear is, and I think it's one of the problems that we face today scaling it, is that we were so concerned about safety. We drove the costs so high because of regulations that we've barely seen any innovation in it. Now, you get really safe nuclear, but you don't get to experiment with the modular stuff that we're finally, after a long, 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 long time, starting to see. So I probably took that way farther than you wanted to on that one, but I found that tweet interesting.
Hmm.
And yeah, I actually have sympathy for Bezos. That's expensive, but those expensive failures are actually what innovation's about. Learn, move on, launch the next one.
Well, I hear Elon's trying to sell more compute after his deal with Anthropic, so Bezos could be a good target for that. He probably is being sincere.
Ish.
Sincere-ish, but
Yeah.
they do have, whenever they change a parameter, so if there's a new satellite model or there's a new rocket model, they do tests to send the first one up as a test.
Yeah.
And then it's just sometimes things are going to blow up when you're dealing with rockets. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Meta officially launched paid subscriptions for Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp this week with AI features tied to payment tiers. It's a significant strategy pivot for that company, which has built its entire empire on ad revenue.
Right. So that would be a shift in the business model. It's one of the best examples of a two-sided market where it only monetizes on one side, so it has a massive free user base. Now, it's not free totally. You have to sell your data and your eyes and your attention, right? So it's not like it's totally free. But then Facebook monetizes that with their engagement metrics that make sure people are watching, and they sell that engagement to the advertisers, right? So that's a massive departure if you now say, and they were careful, we're going to start adding subscriptions. So the target segments, when I looked into it, are businesses. I don't know what businesses will pay for that. Maybe it's advertisers again, creators, and Meta AI users. But I honestly, in some of the features like super reactions, I'm like, what the hell is that? Story insights. AI does that. So already for free. So it was hard for me to see what exactly anyone would pay for this and why they would ever pay for it. I mean, super reactions. I'm thinking, well, I'm still the old school GIF king. So
I guarantee you there will be some sort of blue check or green check or something next to your name when you pay for something.
Yeah. Yeah, but to me, the subscriptions, they're just too many right now.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
There are too many, and it's getting to be overwhelming in my opinion. And I'm not against subscriptions or anything, but if I can't see the value, I don't know. I'm just not in that segment, I guess.
Well, at the base level, it's the same thing as getting a subscription to a gym. It's always the gym has had the subscription model for the longest, in my opinion, for a long time. And
When was the last time you used Facebook, by the way? Speaking of gyms.
oh God, never like actually used it. Never. I mean, it's been a long time. I've been deactivated. I think I might be active right now because I wanted to start using Facebook Marketplace because Craigslist just isn't there anymore.
I think I used it this year, and I looked at my timeline. I think the last time I used it was 10 years. But I was trying to find someone. Right? That's why I started looking at it.
Yeah.
By the way, if you look at your old post on Facebook, that's embarrassing. So there was a little cleanup crew going on when I looked at my old Facebook post.
Oh yeah.
But I would never pay for that thing. I barely use it in the first place. But
do you pay for Twitter? You pay for the mark on Twitter?
I did, but I quickly questioned that decision after like a month of using it.
I think it's the same thing.
Then.
And it's an interesting thing is Apple saw their phone sales go down when the camera on the back didn't change configuration or size because people don't know at a glance that you have the new one. So why do people buy? So there's got to be some sort of visual cue.
Well, there's got to be a limit to that. How many of those can you show at some point? But again, I don't know if they'll shed free users because they're not charging them.
Right.
So that's different from OpenAI, where it was a little bit more of a controversy. If you start trying to charge subscriptions to a free user base, that's way more difficult.
Yeah. They may put some constriction on it. Only 10 fake news posts for you per week if you don't pay. All right. A sneak peek now. Yeah, a sneak peek at a redesigned Siri app reveals Apple is building something far more ambitious than just a voice assistant. It's a direct play to compete with ChatGPT and other conversational AI products.
Remember we talked about OpenAI considering a lawsuit against Apple? Mm-hmm. That was just last week or the week before. So if you're not, go back and watch that conversation if you're listening to this one. But the point there is that OpenAI was claiming that Apple was suppressing ChatGPT within their ecosystem and on the phone in particular. And I said, well, yeah, of course they could. What would I always come back to? Need I remind you that Apple owns the channels and the customers? So eventually what I think Apple decided was we can basically create our own version of ChatGPT, not exactly ChatGPT. It's more like the voice mode, right? Mm-hmm. Powered by who?
Gemini.
That's interesting because in the past you thought, oh, Apple, Google, those are enemies. But it turns out they've actually had some pretty productive partnerships. And this is another example where they're coming together. Why? I was thinking about that strategically. I think this is actually a very mature strategic decision to say, Google, you're better at that. You're better with Gemini. You're spending all the money on it. You're really good at that. Just like it did with Maps. Right? Our Maps sucked as Apple. So we just defaulted to the fact that the users prefer yours. Let's just admit it. Your capability is better. This is called, we talked about it earlier, make or buy. Why make it if you can buy it from somebody who's better at it than you and you can partner with them? And then Google's just recognizing you're really good at your ecosystem. You've got it all wrapped up. We're just recognizing that. You can pay for the underlying technology and license it. We all benefit.
Yeah. I think a lot of companies really took hold of OpenAI because it was the first on the block and they made a lot of snap decisions, and they're now dissing themselves from Sam Altman and something that's
Microsoft too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a hunch. I have no.
But this is natural in business. You do not want to be dependent on one supplier.
True.
You just don't.
Very true.
It's not smart.
Google. The DOJ charged a Google employee this week with pocketing millions by making insider trades on Polymarket. Mike, I heard the creator of prediction markets say that we need insider trading for these to work. Insider trading gives insights to the markets and makes them accurate. So therefore, the inside knowledge holders need to be rewarded for their contributions. What do you think?
You can only legally inside trade if you are in Congress. Yes.
President.
So what this person did would be legal if Congress did it.
That's true.
Okay. The argument you're making is a very typical libertarian argument. You'll see versions of it from people like Robin Hanson, is that actually all information should be public. It should be available.
Yep.
And why is that good? Because even if people are insider, I'm not saying it's good, by the way, I'm just telling you the argument. So even if people are trading on insider information, that information is at least reflected in the prices. So that means the prices that you see are based on the best information.
Yep.
Okay? People find this view fundamentally unfair because they feel like, and I think this is where the law comes from, I think I'm partial to some of that libertarian thinking, right? Like markets do work better when there's more information, better information.
More accurate, for sure. Yeah.
But it feels like a little unfair when you have a privileged position in a huge corporation and you're getting information before the market. And that's where this insider trading typically comes from. And so the question, though, I have on this is why this person got prosecuted. Because the enforcement seems very, very selective when it comes to insider trading.
Caught. That's why.
That right? Because insider trading, in my opinion, happens all the time. There's finance literature on this. You can look at finance professors. The leak.
Yep.
Now the leak is what happens before a major announcement. People start to trade, either them or their spouses or friends, before the major announcement comes. That's how Congress ends up being able to do it, because they know what's being discussed behind the scenes before a major legislative announcement comes, right? So they're in these committees, these secret committees, and they get this information and they're able to trade on it, which is the definition of insider trading. So I get why these sort of, trading Polymarket type markets are interested in that, because I think they know there's a very strong incentive for this to happen, and it's difficult for them to enforce it. It's very difficult for them to stop it.
Well, my problem with this is just the shape it takes. So I don't have a problem with someone being rewarded for their insider knowledge. So maybe if this was a journalistic outlet that was paying someone for their knowledge to then report on it and make money off that information, I think that arrangement might be fair depending on what subject we're talking about, I guess. But the fact that it's set up as a betting market where average people go in expecting maybe a fair market, that I have a problem with, because it's not, you're not getting paid for your good information. You're taking that money from other people who are dumb enough to bet you.
You have an unfair arbitrage advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
Is the point.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, so take heed. If you have insider information, go get paid on Polymarket.
I mean, I get the libertarian argument. I also understand the other side very well.
Yeah.
It looks really bad. It looks fundamentally unfair for someone to have their privileged position and get information the market doesn't have yet, and then to capitalize upon that information. The only argument I could think of for making it legal is that everyone at Google would start doing that. And then the information would be fairer. I mean, you still have to be at Google, but it would get out there much faster, and maybe the arbitrage opportunity is lower. That's the only possible argument right now I can think of.
No, apparently there was a rampant outbreak of insider trading from the White House staff. I don't know if that changed anything for you, but
no,
I'm not surprised.
I just think, I mean, that's about the only political opinion you'll ever hear me give. That should be illegal in Congress if it's illegal in the market.
Yeah, I agree.
Period.
All right. A provocative piece making the rounds this week asks whether the revenue numbers driving AI valuations are real, or if a lot of it is circular spending between the AI companies propping each other up. It's a question the market hasn't fully reckoned with yet.
So this one was difficult to dig into. It was a sort of a speculative post out there, and the idea was that the major companies that are investing, such as Microsoft, Google, into these AI startups, they're trading cloud credits, right? So their investment is a cloud credit for these companies. We saw Sam Altman doing
Hmm.
something
Yeah, Y
similar,
Combinator.
like a
Yeah.
token investment with Y Combinator. The difficulty came was, and this is the claim, that when these cloud credits were cashed in, when they start using the cloud, right, and consuming the credits, that's booked as revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's true, okay, it's revenue, but it's not cash. That's not cash, right? So, okay, what's wrong with that? It's legal, by the way, to do this because this is actually quite typical in corporate venture capital that, or in corporate in general, if you want to invest in a startup, you could easily just invest equipment.
Yeah.
All right, here's some equipment in exchange for something. So this is similar. Here's cloud credits in exchange for an equity position or whatever, or an option or whatever you're trying to get out of it. A right of first refusal. There are all kinds of stipulations you can put in there. The what they're intimating, right? What they're hinting at was that there's some funny accounting going on there. The accounting looks okay. Just if you, from what I read, you'd have to dig into this, make sure it's all real. But the problem there is the cash generation. To me, will this return in cash? It is not true, and this is what I was having a problem with in this take. It's not true that those AI startups, such as Anthropic, let's just take Anthropic, are not generating cash. They are now. They're generating actual revenue.
Hmm.
So then the bet is, and this is why it's hard when you see an analysis like that, looking at the current state where it looks funny, right? Strange. Looks kind of like shenanigans, like the circular financing we talk about sometimes on here. But will the cash and the profit that Anthropic is now generating return back to these companies in the form of actually consumed credits that they pay for? I don't know. That would be the bet, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, what if we
And
change the
for me, that
framing a little bit to
yeah, go ahead.
Nvidia invests 100 billion into Anthropic. Anthropic pays Oracle 100 billion to build data centers, and
Yeah,
Oracle pays 100 billion dollars to Nvidia for chips and stacks and equipment.
sounds smart to me. I mean, like you're trying to guarantee. So this is. It looks like monopoly building from the outside.
Yeah.
And if you have an argument in that direction, you have enough evidence for you. I'm going to make an argument in another direction. This is market building.
Hmm.
In market building, if you're growing a pie, you're trying to grow it for everyone. So AI is a new market. It's fundamentally risky. It's also possible that all of these cross financing or whatever you want to call it, cross pollination, I think we used the word last
Hmm.
week, will fail. So it all turns out to not, right? So to me, it makes sense to make sure. And actually, the Japanese got good at this in their airplane production, car production. Toyota was known for this, is like making sure that you have a really well taken care of supplier so that when things get rough, like the ecosystem survives that you're building and you don't have supply disruptions, etc. So in some ways that's good business. I get what it looks like though. I
Yeah.
really do,
I
right?
mean, as long as Nvidia is not double dipping, like in my scenario, Nvidia is the one that's actually giving the cash in the first place, and then it's coming back to them. So as long as they're
Yeah.
not counting it on their books on both ends, like I think it would be okay, right? I don't know. Maybe they
Hey,
could even count on both ends. I don't know.
I don't think we have enough details on this one. At least I didn't to
Hmm.
make a definitive statement.
This would be a probably a main topic we'd need to dig into it more. That might be
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look at it in that light at some other point down the road. All right. The COO of Okla, the nuclear startup backed by Sam Altman, made a bold claim this week. The nuclear waste already sitting in storage in the U.S. contains enough energy to power the entire country for 150 years. Could we tap
Yeah.
into that?
You know what circularity is? So circularity is a kind of business model where another way you call it is trash to cash.
Hmm. Yep.
So when you in any sort of value chain, there's waste. And the idea of circularity comes from people who are really concerned about sustainability and the environment, is that when you produce waste, you take it and you translate it or transform it into productive uses and generate cash. So there are actually examples where you can generate more cash within the business model if you're able to create a circular model. The challenge is that in a value chain, the people often don't work together.
Hmm.
So this waste is often called a feedstock. So let's say like in textiles, there's a lot of waste. There are companies that out there that buy the waste and then recycle it, right? And then produce virgin, textile material or other side products, right?
Hmm.
So that's essentially what they're saying they're doing here is we're going to take that nuclear waste and repurpose it and create new energy out of it, right? That's at heart kind of a circularity concept to monetize that waste. So I found that interesting. That's something you're going to have to think about. But here's the thing, right? Who is going to be comfortable with that? And this is related to the build out we talked about earlier, where I was challenging people. If the problem is not enough energy build out, nuclear's got to be a big part of that story. And if you're a company that depends on nuclear waste, you don't want to use it all up, right? You're going to want a continuous supply. So this is part of a broader move, I think, to produce energy for AI, to push nuclear, and then push this idea that the waste actually is not waste anymore. We'll be able to convert it into energy. Now, people are already uncomfortable with data centers next to them. How uncomfortable will they be with, oh, nuclear next to them? Or, oh, nuclear waste company converting it next door? Doubt it. I have a nuclear site right in front of me. I'm comfortable with it because I understand the technology pretty well.
Yeah.
A lot of
Most
people are
people.
super skittish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people won't. Most people won't understand it. But I mean, you look at 3 Mile Island here. I don't think we had any public deaths from 3 Mile Island. It was handled much more publicly and at an escalated level from what we all know is the disaster that happened in.
Well, that's why you got to go back to your fundamentals. It was first of its kind of disaster in the US. It's very visual and people panic.
Yep.
The only question is, what was the evidence after it? You'd have to look into it to say, was it as disastrous as we imagined, enough to justify the freeze?
I say no.
Right.
I say more people have died in coal mining accidents
Cars.
than ever has died from
Cars,
Yeah.
automobiles every year.
Well, right, but we're talking about the same industry here. Like coal mining has claimed a lot more lives
Yeah.
than nuclear. So
Yeah.
it's just the perception is really bad. That's it.
Because it's one of those, it's called availability bias. Like nuclear in general has been very safe
Yeah.
in general. A few major catastrophes. Chernobyl, by the way, it's a great series if you haven't watched it.
Absolutely.
Chernobyl being one of the best ones. The problem there probably wasn't the technology as much as the Soviet government just being, it was I would say the systemic problem that caused that more than the technology in that case. But that's part of it, right? You need a good system around it for it to function properly.
At least from the show, they had a lot of the same symptoms as the Titanic captain. Like, oh, we can't sink. We'll
Yeah.
never sink.
Yeah, but you see that from CEOs and top management all the time. They deny problems exist, right? And then the people below don't tell them the truth.
Yep.
My point on that availability bias, though, is when there's a problem, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's visual, and that taps into, I think, human instinct. And we love catastrophes as much as we're afraid of them. They're dramatic. They make great news stories. Same reason that if you get one plane crash out of millions of flights, it's everywhere on the news.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you'll never see an automobile crash unless it's like a big tanker or a truck or oil with a train or whatever. And that's a bias that we have. And I think it really affects nuclear.
Yep.
It's also the same bias, I think, playing into that Blue Origin story, that it's a big visual event that news loves. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is it throws your probability calculations off.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we talked about that before, but it'll come up again and again if we do headlines.
Well, let's talk about something that also might be harming us from the inside out. TikTok is expanding well beyond short form video. Not to harm TikTok. They do great at what they do. Payments, shopping, messaging, and more all are in the roadmap as the platform makes a play to become the Western world's version of WeChat. The question is whether American regulators are going to let this happen. I don't know. I bet they do.
Well, even if they did, what's the strategy here? Remember an old episode where we talked about the difference between Google and Yahoo? Mm-hmm. So Google specialized at one thing, dominated. TikTok originally focused on what? Creators, B2C, video, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a social app, but it was video based. In a particular type of video, shorts, basically. That's what we call them these days.
Yep.
Yahoo did literally everything, and Google killed them. So the question is, if you're Google, do you want to become like Yahoo? And if you're TikTok, do you want to become like the equivalent in China is WeChat? It's a super app, is what you call those things. Mm-hmm. You can do literally everything, right, in those things. So the things they wanted to add to TikTok, and this is a strategic question: search, shop, music, games, hotels, payments. Actually, isn't X trying to be the everything app as well? So it's like same thing. X is trying to do video. It didn't really take off, at least as far as I can tell. So can that work strategically? I don't know the answer. It really, I mean, they have a huge audience, so they've got them trapped. But will the audience accept these other services within it?
Yeah.
As a super app? I don't know. I wouldn't, but
I watched this weightlifter guy, and he listens to music, and he's always like, "Oh, let's change the TikTok cut for this next one." And I have no idea what he's talking about. Like, I don't listen to music on TikTok. I use TikTok, but I don't use it for music. But apparently, a lot of younger folks do. So I don't know. They're probably getting their news, which is super scary. Their news, information, shopping, everything from TikTok.
Yeah, every video I see on there it's basically music to some video. It's some famous music to video. No, I don't know why that's creative, but people like it.
I guess right? So. A friend of ours owns a gas station. It's gas station and novelty store inside, basically. Anyways, but they have a supplier that's like, oh, you have to buy these. And they're like little squishy dumpling things, like stress ball type things. But he says, you have to buy these this week. They're really hot on TikTok. You'll sell it in no time. So like, okay, we'll test the water. We'll buy a box. And they bought a box and they sold it in like 2 hours. They, took a post, put it on Facebook, and they sold it, and it took 2 hours because it's a TikTok craze, because the kids see them on TikTok and they just have to have them.
Yeah, I know.
Crazy.
I've seen those.
Crazy.
Fidgets, spinners, stuff like that. Yeah.
Hey, you've just watched a clip from Show Your Priors podcast. Check out our main channel for full episodes. We have a new one every Tuesday. If you liked what you saw, give us a like and subscribe. It's free for you and helps us out a ton. Did we miss something during our discussions? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.